Hello, it's Justin here, and if you're new to this channel, I have made videos on my academic journey, particularly at WGU, which is a competency-based institution, and many people attend for its flexibility and ability to accelerate. So if you've seen the title of this video, you will know that I have actually completed my second WGU program. So this video, I'm going to share a bit about my process this time around, which includes 8 different strategies, and hopefully that can shed some light on how I made this possible. Now, if you don't know of WGU, or if you've stumbled into this video and you're just kind of shocked at the fact that, it's possible to complete a program in over a couple months, then this will be a good video for you to understand how acceleration happens and how many people have learned how to hack a degree is sometimes what they call it. So just as a recap, I finished my first master's at WGU in curriculum and instruction, and that was in 2020, and I did that program in 5.5 months. And then more recently, I started the second program April 1st, which I'll just show a little screen capture here of when I started. And then I submitted my very last assignment not long ago, which was on June 9th. And I just want to give one disclaimer. Just because I share videos on my way of accelerating does not mean that I believe everyone should accelerate or you have to accelerate. So the first strategy I employed, which is not going to be a shocker, is I had to find an institution that supported the process of working at my own pace. Now, even though many online schools advertise flexibility, I would say the majority actually aren't that flexible. Many are still synchronous, where you have to attend classes weekly or you have to do discussion boards by due dates every single week, and many happen over a very designated term. But the competency-based institutions that I have always had my eye on are the ones that really allow full autonomy, where students can set their own deadlines and work at their own pace with no restriction to how many courses they want to take during the term. So in a way, it's almost like a subscription where you can pay for a term and do as many courses as you want. And there are other schools that do this as well. So there's a channel called College Hacked, which I've stumbled into more recently, and I find it very interesting and useful because, even though I have experience accelerating, this person who has a PhD has also done the accelerated path, and he talks about his strategies. And in one of his videos on online schools suitable for adult learners, he talks about 𝘀𝗡cie and WGU as being two really well-suited universities for learners like myself and many others. Now, the second strategy for me was selecting a program that was in my area of expertise and interest. If I look at WGU, there are a lot of programs, but I'm definitely not well-suited for all of them based on my, affinities and my academic inclinations. So I am a teacher, and that was what my first degree at WG was. So I started to look around to see what other programs were available. Now, in the Teachers College, there's a whole host. A lot of them, I am not interested in because I'm not aiming to gain licensure. So there was other programs, and so for example, the instructional design program, the learning and technology, and then more recently, they have a couple other new programs that are developed and quite current. No, those newer programs were not available when I was interested. I just noticed them pop up in the last month or so. Now, the strategy is choose a program that you do have background in or some knowledge in or some work experience in, especially in the Teachers College where you're having to write a lot about your work experience. So having a program in learning and technology was very useful because I not only have integrated a lot of technology into the classrooms I teach, and I've done a lot of online instruction and blended learning, but I also just have a genuine interest in the area. So I knew it would be something that I could do with engagement and intrigue. The third strategy was to see if there was any possibility of getting transfer credit because I already had a previous degree that was a graduate degree. I actually have even another graduate degree from a totally different school and a different discipline, but I knew I wouldn't get transfer credit from that. But in the last program, because it was in the Teachers College, I did some investigation. And so I'll do a screenshot here. You'll notice that both programs have some of the same core research courses, and it was clear to me that I could get transfer credit based on some of the conversations I had with the enrollment advisors or enrollment counselors at the very beginning of looking into the second program I was interested in. I still had to do a capstone project in the second degree. However, I had already done one, and I had a very clear understanding of how to navigate that project. So that was very useful for me going into the second program. Now, for those who are interested in transfer credits and looking at different transfer credit agreements, WGU does have a web page. I'll do a screenshot here, and they have different agreements that are posted online that you can look through. Now, some people will do self-directed courses on their own, like there are websites like 𝗀𝗲, which have a bunch of undergrad courses that you can do on your own and pay a subscription fee, and you could transfer those in, and therefore you can accelerate your degree because you can do those before even launching into the program. There are other ways, such as exams, where you can get credit by testing out of certain courses and then transferring them in. So those are things you might want to look at. Generally, those are more common for undergrad courses or general education courses, so not all programs will be well suited for that. So essentially, that is kind of talking a little bit about the fourth strategy, which is pre-gaming. So you want to somehow start getting the ball rolling before getting into the program, because again, if you're paying for a block of time and allowed to do as many courses as possible, it's good to transfer in courses or even just get your mind primed to some of the course content you'll be learning about. In my case, I didn't transfer more than those 4 courses or try to do additional courses beforehand, but I did try to inundate myself with the material. So what I did was go to the WGU program guide for my program, look through the topics and the subtopics, kind of get a good sense of what areas I have to know about. And I primed myself by watching videos on YouTube. I looked at different Coursera's where I could just watch some of the videos, and I just audited courses. I didn't actually pay for them, just to learn more about areas like instructional design, which had a very dominant focus within the program that I was interested in. So by learning as much as possible beforehand, I was able to kind of jump into courses and go right to the assessments. For example, so the 5th strategy is a video that I already made. It's called How to Complete a Degree in 6 Months. And the 2 themes in that video are consistency and intensity. So I'll just flash what the video looks like here. I won't go into all the details, but I will just quickly mention the 2 elements that are key to accelerated paths. So consistency really means having a way of integrating schoolwork into your life so that you can maintain momentum. So for me, I had to figure out how often I was going to do my coursework so that it was going to be consistent in my life. And the first time I did a degree at WGU, I did it every weekend, and that was my way of maintaining consistency. Now this time around, I actually worked every single day on schoolwork, and I didn't do that to force myself to do it. I just found that I was really engaged, and I just wanted to work on material every night for a couple hours. And that really helped me stay in the mindset of learning. And I didn't really have to think about convincing myself to study, because I just knew every night I was going to work on something. Even if I just read a chapter or if I started a paragraph in my assignment. Now, when it comes to intensity, what I mean there is you need to feel the burn to some degree if you want to accelerate. And what I mean by that is similar to working out, you cannot see results if you don't feel a little bit of the burn or kind of push yourself. You need to feel a little bit of discomfort in order to grow. So for me, I had times in the program where I was a little bit stressed or frustrated, but I somehow worked through that. I made a video all on how I use agitation to motivate me, especially with paper writing. Now, of course, there are times when you want to take a break or you want to just detach a bit. But in general, I find that a lot of people, they tend to give up very easily. And in my case, I used a little bit of discomfort to my advantage to keep me progressing. What I had said in that video about agitation as motivation is I wanted to keep working so that I didn't have to keep working. What I mean by that is, I would envision myself finishing a paper so that I didn't have to do it anymore. And that kind of kept me going in a way. This lends into the next strategy, which is 6 and that is taking mini breaks. So even though it's good to feel a little bit of that agitation and just kind of figuring out ways to keep yourself working, even if you're a little bit annoyed at the process, kind of work through that mental game that you have to play with yourself in order to concentrate and focus, sometimes it's good to, though, take breaks. And I did this a handful of times. So my mini breaks were really trying to refresh myself and kind of restore my energy. So I tried to do this here and there in order to kind of keep myself from burning out. And I think that's really important for those who are on the accelerated path. I actually made a video that was called 4 Tips on Working While Finishing a WGU Program in One Term. And about in the 8-minute mark, I talk all about the importance of taking some breaks away from school. And not only is it good just to restore, it's actually good so that you can just gain new insight or get inspired again. Now, the 7th strategy for me, was negotiating with my program advisor, because there is this requirement at WGU that every student in the master's program had to meet at least once every couple of weeks with their advisor. Now, for me, that was a bit of a hindrance, because I knew that I was very self-directed and I didn't necessarily need to book an appointment, explain that I was on a roll. I was getting a lot of emails from her, like I'll share some, kind of blur out the contact information though, about booking the appointment, making sure to book an appointment. And eventually I just had a very candid conversation and said, clearly I'm working just fine on my own. I've completed a handful of courses in a very short period of time. I've also completed a previous degree at WGU in 5.5 months. And I think she kind of caught on that, not everyone needs the exact same support. I understand the need for some people to check in order to stay motivated, but I don't know if that helps everyone. So eventually she kind of laid off a bit and let me do my thing. And I would give her some updates through email, which was more efficient for me. And I also convinced her to allow me to go into 2 courses at once after the first 4 sets of courses, because generally in the master's program, they would only roll out 1 course at a time. But for me, I thought it was very useful to get access to 2 courses so that I could kind of look ahead and plan out what I was going to write. So she at first was hesitant, but then eventually, you can see here, I'll share an email, that she was open to it, and she gave me permission to go into 2 courses at once. Now, the final strategy was getting a head start on the Capstone project, which is that final project in the master's program. Now, not all master's program has a capstone, but generally they do. At WGU, there is no thesis project, which is a big research project that is a little bit more rigorous than just a capstone research project. But I would still say that the project is still very rigorous. So at the Teachers College, they are research-based, or at least the programs that I've done. And I started, even before jumping into the program, I started to think about what would be my research question, what would be my research topic. I started to think about how I might write my literature review based on the professional literature that was out there. So I started to collect secondary sources. And luckily I had an advantage because I already had a sense of how the capstone was structured. But what I would suggest is right when you start your program is asking your mentor for access to a repository of examples of excellent capstones, and you can get a sense of the structure, how many pages they are, what's included based on, their titles and the contents page. And I actually did that too. And I looked through, and it really helped me understand what a well-crafted research project was like. Now, in a research study, you cannot just go do the research with human participants without ethics clearance. So for me, I had to wait to do the research until the actual capstone. But again, my mentor allowed me to go into the capstone before finishing kind of that last core course. So she gave me allowance to go in. I also asked her if she could send me a guidebook or some sort of material that I could look at before I was enrolled. And that helped me get a sense about what was expected. And my strategy for working on the capstone was every time I had finished a course and was waiting to pass, which generally takes a couple days, I would start working on my capstone. So I would do reading for, the topic. I would look at scholarly articles. I would collect them. I started writing my literature review. I started writing about my methodology. I started to just kind of put together, what my final presentation might look like, because there are many tasks in the capstone and the final one is a presentation. So even just visually creating some sort of template or guide for that was something useful. So by the time that I was actually enrolled in the capstone, I had almost all of the thought process and a lot of even the writing, even the initial writing done. And that when I was started, I basically submitted my prospectus, which is almost like kind of like a proposal, and got that cleared and passed right away. And then the second step was to get ethics clearance, and that was cleared right away. And from there, after that, I could do the actual research. I scheduled my workshops, which was what my research focus was on, was doing these workshops with adult participants. I scheduled those, conducted those the next few days, and then I wrote up my results and I analyzed the data the next days after that. And then I submitted my final presentation on June 9th. So those are the strategies I used to make this all happen. I'm pleasantly surprised that I got it done in just over 2 months. If you've done something similar where you were able to accelerate, feel free to share your story below. I think there's a lot of people that appreciate reading that. It's very motivating. All right, thanks for watching, and leave your comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.